Hello everyone, welcome to my webinar on how to step up from a 70.3 distance triathlon to an Ironman. Now this is a pretty big jump, it's a pretty intimidating jump. So I want to help you navigate, understand what the differences are, how you can approach your training, nutrition, all the things that you need to know to make that jump from that half Ironman to that full distance. Because if you're anything like me, you complete your first half distance and you go, there is no way I could do that again. Like, how do people do the full distance? But then over time, get into our head, well, what would it take? What would it look like? So you could be watching this because you signed up already. You could be watching this because you're thinking of signing up. I just want to help you understand, what the challenge involves. Now, before I get too started into this, as those of you listening to my podcast might know, I have a adopted greyhound, Poppy, who is she because I live on my own. She's always lurking around in the background of any recording. So if you hear a little whine in the background, or if you hear the sound of a collar shaking as she decides to wake up and have a stretch, I do apologise. I tried to move through it, but if the webinar is quite stoppy starty because we are approaching the time of day when we go for a WALK. That'll be me pausing the webinar to help sort of calm her down a little bit, but I apologise for any noise interruptions. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Simon Olney. I'm a professional triathlon coach, have been since 2016. Completed over sort of 50 triathlons, from sprint to Ironman. I've even been lucky enough to win a few races. I've been in sport since 2012, so whilst I'm not sort of the coach who's got 30 years in the sport, I'd like to think that I'm still in a really strong position to be able to help people. I've been helping people complete Ironman events, yeah, for over 10 years now. Um, British Triathlon High Performing Coach, that's the highest level of qualification you get in the UK. I'm also an Ironman certified coach. And I've got qualifications in strength and nutrition. I'm a level 4 strength and conditioning coach, I'm a personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist. I spent the time I've invested in my education. So I want to start off with this fact, okay? That up to 25% of athletes who sign up to an Ironman will fail to even start the race. Now, this can be, due to a variety of reasons. It can be, due to illness. It can be due to um, logistical reasons. Obviously, if there's a family emergency or something. But I think that a lot of these people who fail to start is because they sign up thinking it'd be a great idea, but then they realize what's involved, and they just think to themselves, I'm not sure if I can do this. Before they even make it to the start line, they bottle. Now, 25% again, that is towards sort of the higher end of things. I think that races that have sort of swims that are especially rough, if somebody signs up to an event that's a sea swim and there's some really rough seas, then those are the races where the did not start rate is going to be highest. Also, people with technical problems and that if their bike has an issue, that will be included in that. But I think a lot of people they sign up to an Ironman event, perhaps like you have, and they will be overwhelmed by everything, and they'll just think, I can't do it. And then up to 35% of those who cross the start line will fail to finish. Again, 35% is towards the higher end of things. This number will be higher over hilly races, over those with, as I say, sort of choppier sea swims and the like. So this is something that, again, just because somebody crosses the start line, they're far from guaranteed to finish. Now, some races will have a higher DNF rate than others. The weather will be a factor, the course, all of this. But I think we only need to look at these numbers to understand, like, wow, nobody's ever owed an Ironman finish. In fact, a lot of professional athletes they will DNF Ironman races relatively regularly, partly because if they're way behind where they need to be on the bike, if they've had a mechanical, if they're a long way away from earning any money from this race, they may go, I'm gonna, you know what? I'm going to pull the plug. I'm going to do another race. It's in a fortnight because I don't want to start the run. I don't want to run a marathon and to be able to have all of the fatigue that comes with that. I'd rather just stop at the bike, halfway through the bike or at the end of the bike, and just say, hey, you know what? Let's have another go. So DNFs at Ironman are really quite common, and I want to help you avoid that. So what the big difference is between a half and a full Ironman? Well, for a start, I mean, the most obvious one is the increased training hours. Now, these will generally fall on the weekend. So, between training for a half and training for a full distance, the main impact is going to be on your weekend. On the weekday, most people are going to be training for around about an hour. It could be that some people do double sessions. It could be that some people can fit in sort of 90 minutes in the morning before work. Those who have sort of more relaxed work schedules, they can choose to start later in the day, whatever the reason may be. But the weekend for most athletes is where that's really going to pile on. If we have a long ride, if we have a long run, and we also want to fit an open water swim, and we can only get to the lake or to the sea on the weekends, then by the time we get deep into training, that could be a 2.5 hour long run, it could be a 5 hour ride, and it could be an open water swim, all crammed into that weekend. So that is a big difference there. We have an increased injury risk, unfortunately, due to the increased volume of training that we're doing, just doing more hours. We are going to see an increased risk of injury. So we need to take steps to avoid that by building the volume up slowly, by including sort of strength, stretching, mobility, all of these that we can include within our program to help ensure that we are, sort of just reducing the risk of injury. I'd be a liar if I said I could help you avoid injury. I'm just trying to help you reduce the risk of injury. Nutrition becomes much more important. Now, for a Olympic distance, you can just kind of have 2 or 3 gels throughout the race and you'll be absolutely fine, for most people at least, if you're finishing around that 3 hour mark. Um, when you jump up to a 70.3, it's a steep learning curve where suddenly you can't just get by on vapors. If you finish the bike and you are really depleted in glycogen, you're going to have a horrible time out there on the run. However, over the 70.3, you can afford to just about kind of blag it through a little bit. If you come off the bike and if you're broadly okay, and you can have, 3 gels on the run, you can cross the finish line and you might be all right. Over the Ironman, we could be out there for 17 hours. Okay? It Something that's hard for people to get their head around with the nutrition with Ironman is that if you imagine being awake for 18 hours in a day or 17 hours, that's a relatively long time to be up and about. I mean, if I if I wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning and don't go to bed until 11 p.m., I'll be thinking, oh, it's quite a long day that was. You could be out there exercising, training, racing for that long. And you think what you would eat over a regular Sunday. You'd wake up, you'd have your breakfast, you'd have a snack, you'd have lunch, maybe something mid-afternoon, then you'd have your dinner. And we're having to fuel our effort, we're having to eat more than that because we are not sat around watching the Antiques Roadshow. We are out there and we are pushing our physical limits, okay? And nutrition, we need to really be on top of it. We cannot afford to get sort of 4 or 5 hours into the bike and into sort of the day, sorry, and start to think, oh, I'm feeling a little bit, lightheaded, my stomach's feeling a little bit upset, okay? We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to reduce the chance of that. Again, like injury, there is no guarantee that you have a sort of nutritionally problem-free race. Could never promise that. But there are steps I can talk you through to help you avoid the risk of that. And sort of the distribution of intensity is the big thing, really. And a 70.3 is a lot easier to race. A lot of people can race a 70.3. They can push their limits in a 70.3. They can get themselves in the top 50%, in the top 20%. They can be pushing their limits. They can cross that line feeling they gave it their all. An Ironman, I think anybody who gets all the way through an Ironman and is pushing the whole way and finishes without walking, they can feel really proud of themselves. Because the vast majority of athletes, they're going to have walk breaks on the marathon. They're going to struggle. It's going to be more of a struggle. It's going to be more of a sort of a war of attrition than it is a race in the truest sense. So you do need to shift your mindset. We're no longer thinking about, I mean, the majority of people, there are exceptions, of course, but the majority of people, if you're going from a half to your first full distance, we should be thinking, how is it that I can avoid walking on the marathon? How is it that I can get round in a time that I'm proud of? but where I'm not trying to push my limits. I'm not trying to, oh, I've got these goals. I want to get the sort of the sub 110 swim. I want to get a sub 6 bike. I want to do a sub 4 marathon. Okay. These goals, they're great if you're coming back and doing your second Ironman, if you already know what's involved. But for your first, really, I do encourage you just to dial it down. Uh, and we do need to slow down for an Ironman. Now, over 70.3, as I said, you can be pushing at a higher intensity because you're out there for less time. But for an Ironman, as I said, my job is to get the medal around your neck. For your first Ironman, the main consideration is finishing. Now, I have coached people to their first Ironman and they've gone sub 11. Their finish time has started with a 10. It could be 10, I think it's sort of 10:12. I think is the best I've had from somebody on debut. Young lad, fit bloke, done loads of marathons. Getting that medal around your neck is the most important thing. Again, as I touched on the previous slide, the marathon is a battle not to walk, and you will be racing in zone two. As most of you finish a 70.3, I'm going to imagine you know what zone two is. You'll be racing there because the pros race there. The pros, they're still out there for 7, 8 hours minimum. Okay, nobody is pushing. I remember in sort of reading that in days gone by, in sort of the 80s, that different the presenters, the Ironman World Championships, they'd be on bikes and they'd have microphones and they'd pull up to the lead guys at the Ironman World Championship. They'd say, "Hey, how are you feeling? How's it going? What do you think you can do today?" And you'd have this athlete on the bike to, "Oh yeah, legs are feeling good. I'm feeling pretty strong. I'm hoping I can catch these guys up, and then I can tag on to them, on the run. And my running's been going well recently." And they would give full answers to the questions. They're not sat there out of breath. "Yeah, I'm good. Just leave me alone." They're not short of breath because they are pacing themselves. They are riding at a similar percentage of FTP that we are. That kind of 70 to 75% for the most part for an Ironman is about right, sometimes higher in some cases, but yeah, around about that, in that region there. The difference is their FTP is 400 watts, where ours might be 180. Okay, so they're going so much faster, but they're still working at the same effort level as we are. So you need to slow down. You need to accept this is going to be a long, slow day out. It's not going to feel like a race. It's not going to feel like you're pushing, pushing, pushing. Okay? Big focus on nutrition because I want your Ironman race. I want your result on the day to come down to your legs and your lungs. I want these to be the limiters. I want you to think, gosh, that marathon was so hard, my legs are in bits, but I just did what I could. I took short walk breaks, but I pushed on through. As opposed to somebody who I spoke to who said, "Oh, the Ironman marathon, it was really rough. I had to make myself throw up in the Portaloo because they had such bad experience with their nutrition, or they just get really bad diarrhea and they're just having to like run from Portaloo to Portaloo the whole way around the marathon so they can let the next avalanche out." We don't want that. We can't afford for this to happen. So we need to look at nutrition through a different lens to a 70.3. Okay? We've got a vastly reduced margin forever. If you have, a little bit of a wobble over 70.3, especially if it's towards, on the run, you can just about pull through. You can just about correct it. But if we end up really sort of bonking, if we end up with low energy on the Ironman marathon, or even towards the end of the bike, we are screwed. Okay, it's very hard to claw yourself back out of that place. If you really do find yourself getting shaky and lightheaded, by the time that starts, you're really in trouble. We need to prevent ourselves from bonking because once you bonk, it's so hard to come back. In fact, I don't think I or anyone that I know has ever come back from bonking. You can come back from that place of shaking and feeling like you can't push the pedals round. You can come back, you can have a gel or two, you can feel a bit better, but you'll very quickly slip back into that state. It's really hard to sort of drag yourself out of that place, especially with the nutrition that we have available on course. You can't just wing it on the day. You can't just go, oh, I'll have a few flapjacks, or, oh, I'll see what they've got on the course. Okay. We need a plan. We need to research what is available in the feed stations. Because at Ironman feed stations, they're quite different to 70.3 feed stations because they would tend to have more in the way of savory foods. Now, these will often just be listed on the website annoyingly as savory food, which could be a variety of things. It could be sort of tortilla chips. It could be that they have something like so something some sort of savory bake or something. Depends on the part of the world that you're in. It depends on a number of different factors. So, um, yeah, there's an awful lot that you need to plan. You need to understand what sports nutrition products are they giving out. What am I going to have access to? You can't afford to just try a gel for the first time on race day and go, oh, let's see how I get on with this. Because that could end up, giving you real gastrointestinal stress. It could make you feel nauseous. There are huge, issues that can come with that. We want to mix these high GI carbs. So the sugary sports nutrition, the gels, the bars, the carbohydrate drinks, but we need to balance that with real food, especially if we are going to be out there for a long time. You hear professionals talk about they have, a liquid only diet. They will have gels and they'll have bottles with carb mix in them. Now, at Ironman events, there are pro-specific fueling stations where they can have access to their own nutrition that's out on course for them to pick up, so they can mix up their own sort of homebrew, sports nutrition and leave it out there on that table, and they can grab it as they go past, and they can use what it is that they want. We don't have that luxury as age groupers. We have special needs bags, which I'll touch on a bit later. But we have to adopt approach where we go, we cannot, because we're not going to be out there for 7, 8 hours, and because we're not going to have access to all of the nutrition that we want on a table, easy to grab. We need a different strategy. We cannot afford to listen to the strategy that the top sports nutritionists and the top pros are really banging on about. We need to have a pragmatic approach. And if we're going to be out there for more than 12 hours, you're going to get to the point, especially on the run, where you're going to go, I cannot even look at another energy gel right now. Like there is, n I cannot even envisage having another gel. My stomach is doing backflips. I don't want more sugar. God damn it, I just want a pizza. I just want a steak. I just want something salty. I want a pork pie. I want something that isn't sugar. And so mixing in real food into your nutrition strategy, I think is really important. Again, the longer you're going to be out there, the more important this becomes. For those of you who listen to my podcast, I did a episode where I interviewed one of my clients who completed Ironman Wales, and he talks about how a sausage roll saved his life on the run. He just got to the point where if it wasn't for having that sausage roll on hand in his special needs bag, then he doesn't know if he'd have finished. He was somebody who told me in our sort of our chat where we were building up our nutrition strategy pre-race, and he said, I can have gels, they're fine, they sit on my stomach, I can have loads. And I'm like, okay, but please just stick something savory in your special needs bag in case you need it. Lo and behold, that was exactly what we needed at that point in time. Practice in your training. You need to find the products you're going to use. I mean, ideally, if you look at the products that are out there now at the moment, 2026, Ironman, they have a partnership with Morton, with Precision Hydration, who are providing the drinks and the gels and the bars on race day. Try their products. Order those products, see how you get on with them. You can get a discount if you go onto the Morton website. You sign up to an Ironman, you can get a percentage off if you can prove that you're signed up to an Ironman. Try these out because you may go, oh, you know what? Like these are actually really nice. Like I can get on with these. You need to build up a strategy especially as we approach race day. In the last like 10, 12 weeks, you need to be fueling your sessions with these sports nutrition products much earlier than that. When you're sort of 6 months out, okay, go for cheaper options. Get yourself some Haribo, get yourself whatever you can get, you can buy in bulk that's cheaper. whatever it is that's going to work for you. But when we get close to race day, we really need to practice with the products that are going to be available on course. And if these products that are available on course we don't like, if they make us feel unwell, if the taste is horrible to us, if they sit on our stomach, we need to know that. We need to find alternatives and we need to practice with those alternatives. Sorry. We need to practice with these alternatives because they are, we can't afford to be sort of swinging in the dark on race day. When I did my first Ironman, I trained with what was it? Jamaica ginger cake. So that kind of stodgy, sugary, but it's got that different texture in that. And I chopped that up into portions that had 30 grams of carbohydrate in, so it's similar to a gel. So I had a gel and had some Jamaica ginger cake every hour and had savory options as well. And I really mixed it up. I practiced it in my training so I knew it would work for me. I didn't have any real issues with my nutrition on race day because I practiced it so religiously in training. And more is generally better when it comes to nutrition. So if we can get, 60 grams carbohydrate an hour is what some people recommend. Not so much these days. I mean, in days gone by, this is what, again, when I did my coach education, when I first started out, 60 grams an hour, that's the target. But that just about meets the sort of the recommendation, the amount of, it matches the energy we're burning, just about. What we want, instead of just being able to meet and replace the energy we're burning, is we want to build up a buffer. And some of us, we will burn more than 60 grams an hour. But some of us will be close to 70 to 80, especially those of us who just, a bit bigger. Those who are really skinny and small might only burn sort of 50, 60. Those who are bigger might burn sort of 70, 80. If we can stomach more nutrition, this generally results in a better performance. If somebody's putting away 70 grams of carbohydrate an hour or 80 grams of carbohydrate an hour, they will often outperform those who are taking in less nutrition. A lot of you be familiar with Christian Blumenfeld. He's a previous Ironman world champion, Olympic gold medalist. He has won more than just about anybody else in the sport. He says nutrition is really easy. You just need to eat as much as you can without throwing up. And if you've been following the sport of professional triathlon in the last couple of years, you know that seeing Christian blowing chunks out on the race course is not unusual at all. It's just he just pushes the limit of what it is that he can have, and I would never condone that approach. I think you as an age group triathlete, you shouldn't get to the point where you are tilting your head on the bike and doing a rainbow yawn because you've eaten too much. We should not be doing that, but we should be sort of pushing the limits in our training. Can we have 60? Can we have 70? Can we have 80? Special needs bags. You'll be offered these when you sign up to an Ironman. I believe these are now opt-in rather than opt-out. Make sure that you sign up for one of these. If you haven't, get in contact with the race and say, I would please like to have a special needs bag because you have nothing to lose by taking a special needs bag on, especially for your first race. You have access to these bags once per lap and you can stuff them with anything that you want. So that's once per lap on the bike, once per lap on the run. Most bike courses are 2 to 3 laps and most run courses are 4 laps. So you probably have, about sort of 7 or 8 chances, 6 or 7 chances to access your special needs bags throughout the day. These are different for the bike to the run. So you want to include sports nutrition because you don't want to be carrying around all of the gels and the bars and anything else that you have with you during the whole Ironman marathon. You want to be able to stop off each lap and grab what it is that you need. On the bike, you'll pull up, there'll be a volunteer, you'll shout out your race number, and they'll go and they'll grab your bag and bring it to you, and you can take out what it is that you need and return it to them. The chap who did it when during my first Ironman was dressed as an Oompa Loompa, which added to the effect of the day. But it's on the run it is self-service. They'll be all laid out in a grid, and you go over and you help yourself to your bag. Um, again, sports nutrition, it's the classic one to add. If you don't like the gels that are out on course, you need to find an alternative. And you will then want to get that alternative, buy up a bunch of nutrition that you need and stick it in your in your special needs bag so that you can access that every lap and buy more than you need. Put in like two or three more gels than you think that you'll need, just so you've got that contingency. Gels, bars, whatever it is, and stuff it with real food. Ask yourself when you're deep into your next long ride, when you're 4 hours into your ride, think to yourself, God, what is it that I really want right now? What is it that I'm craving? Is it a greasy pizza? Is it the cheese from that greasy pizza? Is it something that's more protein based? Is it, is it a pie or a steak? What is it? And find something similar to that and stick it in your special needs bag. If you're craving a steak, grab some biltong and stick it in there. If you are craving pizza, then you can get yourself like a cold pizza, stick it in your special needs bag. Or any, anything else, some sort of some cold cheese on toast. I don't know, whatever it is that you're thinking, God, that would just settle my stomach and give me so much energy right now. And put that in your special needs bag. Put them in Ziploc bags if you need to. Stick them in there. Also, if you on the bike, any spares. So if you go out with sort of a spare inner tube for the bike, but you get a puncture the first lap, you want to know you've got a second inner tube in that bag waiting for you at the special needs station. So you're not having to do your whole second lap thinking to yourself, if I get another puncture, I can't continue this race. So put spares like that in there, quick links maybe to repair your chain. Anything that you think you might need. Maybe a tiny little bit of bicycle lube in there if you're worried about your lube coming off if it rains. Whatever it is that you think that you might need, stick it in there. As well as any sort of potential medication. If you take hay fever medication or anything, heart meds, anything that you will need to take during that potential 17-hour event, stick it in there. And you might need some hygiene products. Anything that you might need spares of or clean copies of or whatever, just stick it in that special needs bag. But bear in mind that anything you do not collect, it will be sent to landfill. So don't stick in an expensive waterproof jacket in case it rains or in case you need an extra layer, because that will be sent straight to landfill after you finish. If it's not collected at the end of the event there, and I don't think you can send a family member to collect it for you. One note actually on family members is that you cannot use outside assistance during an event. So you cannot have somebody, a family member who will collect a piece of equipment for you or who will hand you nutrition out there or go to collect your special needs bag for you. And that is against the rules of Ironman. I mean, if you were to toss your jacket to the side of the road and then, a minute or two later a family member would just so happens go and collect that for you, that's a bit different, but you can't be seen to be handing things directly off to family members. You need to get the right bike set up. Now, you need to get your bike adjusted and set up for Ironman. Clip-on aero bars, I do recommend if you don't already have them. I think most people will over the half distance, but you can save you a lot of time, especially over flatter courses. Um, Cassette gear setup. I recommend a wide cassette for hilly races. I made a mistake when I did Bolton, where I went out with my 1128. I should have gone for an 1132 because the hills were just they're a lot steeper than I anticipated. I rode the course on my turbo, so I uploaded the GPX of the event, and the turbo helped, create the resistance to simulate the hills that I was riding on. But the issue that I had was that when you're riding on a turbo train, it doesn't help you realize just how steep they are. 'Cause you don't have to worry about having to go at a speed required not to fall off of the bike. So I was just, sort of sat there grinding away, thinking, oh, this isn't too bad. But yeah, on the day, it was so much worse. So just spend the money to upgrade your cassette into a wider version. Yes, you do end up with larger gaps between your gears, but over an Ironman, it's much more important that you have access to those really easy gears because when you're 120 kilometers into the bike and you go up a really steep hill, you're going to want to be able to maintain a sensible cadence. You're not going to be wanting to grind up there at 50 or 60 RPM. You want to go probably for a less aggressive position than 70.3. If you have, been a relatively competitive 70.3 athlete, you might have your position really dialed. You might want to just lift the spaces up a little bit. You may want to make it a bit less aggressive. Have a slightly lower drop between the saddle and the bars because you're going to be out there for twice as long. And having the most aero position in the world is no good if you spend most of the second lap sat up because you can't hold that position. Don't throw money at upgrades. They don't tend to really give you the benefits that you're looking for, especially for your first event. Yes, you could go out there and you could spend, 3, 4 grand on a set of racing wheels with a disc on the back. Probably save you like 5, 10 minutes. Okay, there are much better places to spend your money on those kinds of than on those upgrades. There, they just they don't provide you with the best return on investment at all. Of course, there's a time and a place for them. I mean, getting a slightly more aerodynamic helmet or getting clip-on aero bars if you don't have them already. They're good. They're good investments. But yeah, spending thousands on oversized jockey wheels and these really expensive wheels ahead of your big Ironman, like for your first event, like you're just not going to see that investment back. A tri bike is not necessary. But a lot of people at Ironman will run a full tri bike. However, there are also plenty of people who are out there who will just be getting it done on road bikes. I would only really recommend somebody gets a tri bike if they know they are in the sport for the long run. If it's just sort of a project for a year or two for you, probably not going to be worth because you're going to spend like good money on a tri bike. You're not going to get much change out of 4 grand, and you will lose money when you sell that on. But comfort really is king on the Ironman bike. I want you to finish the ride and to not be sort of hobbling as you make your way towards transition two. It really, comfort comes before speed. I'd much rather, because any time that you gain on the bike by being super aero, you will lose on the run by walking around like John Wayne. So let's look at all the disciplines. Okay, let's look at the Ironman swim. Now, it's a big step up, going from 1900 meters, which is a very small step up from 1500 meters. So, if you go from sprint to Olympic, that feels like a pretty big jump. But Olympic to 70.3, I mean, I don't even really notice the extra 400 meters between the distances when I'm racing. But we're suddenly jumping up to 3,800 meters. Okay, we're doubling that swim. It's really quite significant. So it's going to take you an hour as a minimum, chances are. Some people go under an hour, but most people are going to be close to at least 120. Between 120 and 130, it's when most people finish their Ironman swim. Um, but it's a 2 hour, 20-minute cutoff. That is a long time to be in the water. And if you're in the water for 2 hours and 20 minutes, nutrition could start to become a consideration. The body generally has enough glycogen stores to last us for around about 90 minutes before we start to, sort of hit the wall a little bit, go a little bit bonky. If you're going to be in there for a full 2 hours and 20 minutes, then you will probably need to have a gel on hand. Stick a gel up the corner of, up the, sort of the leg. That's the right word I'm looking for. The leg of your triathlon wetsuit. Stick it up there. It's less likely to fall out. It's not going to interfere with your stroke as much if you stick up the sleeve on your hand, and you can then sort of tread water or roll on your back, pull that out, and get a sugar boost. If you think you're going to be flirting with the cut-offs in the Ironman swim, make sure you got something there with you. Ideally, 2 gels just to be safe. But you do need to still see the Ironman swim as being a warm-up for a very long day. Okay, although the Ironman swim is normally, for the pros at least, the most intense part of the day, it is still done at a pretty relaxed pace because you can't afford to burn your matches ahead of the bike. Pros, if you look at the way that like Lucy Charles Barkley swims, she always comes out the swim with a pretty big lead. It's very rare that somebody comes out with her, and she is then planning to extend on that advantage to get out on the bike and not have somebody sat there 20 meters behind her, like enjoying that draft because she's a pretty decent cyclist. Um, it's in her interest as a pro to get a larger gap and to push that a bit harder on the swim. For us as age groupers, this is just a warm up. Okay, so don't get carried away. Don't push it too hard. It will be a multi-lap swim in most cases. It's very rare that you get a one lap 3,800 meter swim. It could either be that you turn a buoy or you could be doing what they call an Aussie exit, where you come out of the water, you run around on land for a bit before you jump back into the water. Um, if that's the case, just practice it in a couple of swims in training. Come out of the lake or the beach, sort of do a little 50-meter run in a semicircle and then jump back in, just so you know sort of how it feels. I mean, it's for many people, it's a nice chance sort of to adjust your goggles a little bit. If I mean, I know that sometimes when I'm swimming, and my goggles would get progressively tighter on my face. It could be, as I don't know, maybe my face swells up ever so slightly. It's very hard to adjust that when you're in the water successfully because you want to make them just that little bit looser to get rid of that headache, but not so loose they start letting water in. Doing an Aussie exit is a good chance to do this. Yeah, it shouldn't have too much of an effect on your day, but again, it's just worth knowing. The Ironman bike is a very long day in the saddle. Anything under 6 hours is pretty impressive. And it will be the longest that most of you ever ridden before. I do recommend that everybody rides at least 100 miles in training, before they take on this event. But yeah, for a lot of people, get that 112, it is going to be a step beyond what they've done so far. You need to study the course in excruciating detail. You need to understand where the hills are, where the aid stations are, where the toilets are. You need to make sure that nothing is going to be a surprise. Look at the course, see where the corners are, where are the hairpins, where are the really fast corners, and you want to have it in your head. I always, when I am attending a race with an athlete, we jump in my car and we go and we drive the course the day before. And I will talk out, watch out for that corner there. There's a really nasty pothole. This corner, it tightens. There's a brick wall at the end of that corner. So whatever you do, don't go too fast into that. Um, just to help really understand what it is that's coming along, that's ahead of you. Don't go into it blindly and think, oh, let's see how this goes. You can't afford the amount of time and money that you've invested to get to this point. You can't afford to just wing it on the day. 70.3, again, it's a lot more forgiving a distance than an Ironman is. Um, Remember that nutrition comes before momentum, always. It's a rookie mistake that people make, and hopefully you've already made it in your 70.3 in your training, so you don't make it here. But people who think, oh, I don't need the aid station, I'll just keep on pushing, or I don't want to stop right now. I'll grab that later. Terrible, terrible mistake. People end up without the nutrition that they need, without the gear that they need, feeling like dehydrated, running out of water, because they didn't just stop or just even grab a water bottle as they went through the aid station, okay? Always stop at an aid station if you're in any doubt whatsoever. If you plan to be completely self-sufficient, if you're just using special needs bags and what you're carrying on your bike, it's not an issue. In that case, stay well clear of the aid station because aid stations are a little bit chaotic. You will get people swerve around last minute. Oh, actually, no, I do want a bottle of water, and they'll swerve their bike, and they can end up cutting people up. Um, so yeah, keep sort of your wits about you when you're at an aid station, and that should really help you. Avoid ending up in a senseless crash. Um, the Ironman bike, it will get boring and lonely at times. When you're out there, when you come out the swim, you've got all these people around you, all these other cyclists. You think, this is it. I'm on the Ironman bike course. This is what I've been training for. I'm really excited. And it's very easy for people to go out too fast. You really do need to slow down, back off on the bike. Look, you've got a marathon coming up after this. Obviously, you don't want to put yourself at risk of the cutoffs, but you don't want to be pushing it on the bike because you feel strong, because you feel good. And yeah, but yeah, once you get out there, once you get into more rural areas, once the field is spread out, when you're a long way from any towns, it's going to get boring and you will start to feel lonely. And you need to prepare for that and get used to that in your training. Just have that mindset, and that not needing music and stimulation around you all the time to entertain you, because that's what you're going to experience on race day. And again, you still got a marathon to run, so that's so important with the pacing. I would always recommend that somebody backs off if they're in doubt on the Ironman bike, because yeah, if you're in any doubt whatsoever, just slow down. The Ironman marathon. This is the final hurdle. This is all that now stands between you and achieving your goal. Now, most people are going to experience this more as a war of attrition. It's more just try not to run. Sorry, try not to walk. Try to run if you can. Yeah, just try not to walk rather than, oh, I'm gonna, I'm gonna aim for, sub 3:30. Or, I know plenty of people that are experienced marathon runners and they will go, oh, well, I normally run marathons in about 3.5. So I aim for like 3:40 and they end up coming in closer to five because either they paced it wrong, they didn't have the bike fitness they needed to, they went out too fast at the start of the marathon. Okay, as soon as you dismount that bike, as soon as you have done that 3,800-meter swim and you've done a 180-kilometer bike, okay, I never ask somebody to do that in training and then start the run. That's stupid. But you are because you are going to be in uncharted territory as soon as you get off of that bike. You will never have been exercising for as long as you have and done these sports in this order once you come off the bike. You are breaking new ground in your first Ironman. So you need to listen to your body and go, I'm going to abandon all preconceptions, all goals, and instead simply focus on relentless forward motion. Just keep moving forwards. Running, walking, power walking, jogging, whatever it takes, okay? Just keep moving forward. Try not to stop. Try not to stop and feel sorry for yourself and chat to people. I mean, if you need to really stretch yourself out, then you can do that. But yeah, try not to stop 'cause it's hard to get going again. Um, but yeah, if you can, just keep chugging along at a slow pace. I think I have worked with two people in 10 years. I've only worked with two athletes who have managed to run every step of their first Ironman marathon. I think maybe some of them might walk the aid stations, but yeah, it's so difficult to be able to do that. Managing your stomach is as important as your pace and managing your legs. On the bike, you can digest a lot more because you're using less energy in your static position. When you're running, you're bouncing up and down, and you're also much deeper into the race, and your stomach can start to become really quite delicate, and it can become quite reactive to different things. So you really do need to make sure you're paying as much attention to what it is that you're eating as how fast it is that you're running. And in your mind, just break the run down into four 10Ks. Now, most Ironman marathons are 4 laps, some are three, but the way I break it down to four 10Ks is first 10K, you're just getting a feel for things. You're just exploring the course. Knowing the run course isn't as important as knowing the bike course. It's actually very difficult to be able to practice the run course or to get a feeling for it because they're often around city centres. Um, but if you can do that, that first run, the first 10K is a reconnaissance 10K. The second 10K, you're getting into groove a little bit. You're getting towards the halfway point. By the end of this lap, I'll be halfway through my marathon. The third 10K is gonna suck. It always does. You just gotta sort of lock in and you just gotta mentally go, this is it. Like I'm so close. I'm so very close. I'm passing the finish line again. But at the end of this lap, that will be the last time that I can run past that finish line without crossing it. Um, Last 10K is your victory lap. Once you've made it that far, it's things would have to go really quite badly wrong for you to fail to finish at this point. By the time that you've started, by the time that you're 40K, sorry, 30K into your run, by the time that you are, you are really sort of starting to chase down that last 10 kilometers, the last 12 kilometers, something would have to go pretty biblically wrong for you to fail to finish. So you can afford to back off here, but still, again, keep on top of your nutrition, take nothing for granted. Don't push so hard that you run the risk of cramp, because that is one thing that could really derail you. And abandon any targets or preconceptions. I touched on that earlier, but don't get in your head that you're going to go sub 4, that you're going to go sub 3:30, that you're going to go sub 3. Some people might, if somebody runs like 2:30 for the marathon, you go, oh yeah, I'll go sub 3 at the Ironman. Just like abandon it, abandon all that and just push as hard as you can. Because the sound of an Ironman marathon course is of people's Garmin's beeping, going, you're going too slow for your pace targets. You can't afford you don't want to set your Garmin up to say, oh, make sure I don't go slower than this, because you will go slower than that, and it will make you feel like crap if your watch is bleeping all the time telling you to speed up. Training. What do you do in our training? How do we prepare for this? Well, biggest focus is on those long zone two sessions. It's on long rides, it's on long runs. It is, yeah, just making sure that we're getting that volume in so that we can go out and we can ride and run these long distances without ourselves feeling completely shot. Okay, we're building these sessions up slowly and gradually. VO2 intervals, plenty of those, especially when we're a long way out from race day. Maximizing aerobic fitness, which is super important for most athletes out there, to be able to just be able to perform at a higher pace for lower effort. Okay, with lower heart rates, it is what we're aiming for. Uh, we need to focus on weekly volume more than our longest sessions. Now, the super long sessions on the weekends, they are important, but I'd much rather somebody goes, I want to focus on being able to knock out like consistent knock out these like 10, 12 hour weeks for the next month or two than to go, oh, well, yeah, I'm nearly up to 30K on my long run now. Okay. I don't care. I don't really care that much about your longest run. I've done marathons where I've negative splitted and done, big PBs, despite the fact that I never really ran much over a half marathon in training. It's the volume of training that you do. It's just building that resilience, building that durability, and that broad aerobic fitness. That is what is key. So, yeah, the weekly volume is king over maximizing your longest sessions. Again, we need long sessions. I just made that point at the sort of the top of the slide, but not if these long sessions are to the point where they're going to be sort of compromising the rest of your training. If you do your 35-kilometer long run, but you can't train for 3 days afterwards, like that's just not smart training. Um, Double sessions are not required, but they are encouraged. So if you can train twice a day, I recommend you do it. If you're motivated, if you're driven, if you have the capacity and you feel up to it, sure, go do those double sessions, but you don't need to. Some people say, oh, you need to do 15 hours a week in training. You need to be doing double sessions. You don't. Just get your head down and do what you can. If you can only train for an hour a day, that's fine. You know, some people they can train for sort of 8 to 10 hours a week and still have a reasonable showing at an Ironman. You know, it's again, it's encouraged to put in these sessions if you can, but don't feel that you can't train for Ironman unless you're doing 2 sessions a day. That's not the case at all. But injury reduction should come front and center. You should not be putting in hard and long runs on tired legs. Listen to your body, okay? Don't skip the strength training. Have all the pieces in place that you need to help ensure that you are going to be maximizing your performance, but without putting yourself at risk of an injury that could really just completely derail you. Speaking of strength training, it's even more important for Ironman than other distances because we need to offset all the time that we spend on the bike. Now, when we're on the bike, we're going to be giving our quads a battering. We're going to be really developing our quads. But unless we target our hamstrings in the strength room, the weight room, sorry, we are going to be increasing the risk of injury, knee injury specifically, from having overactive quads and underactive hamstrings. As well, targeting muscles in a lateral plane, such as sort of your glute medius. These are really important for you to be able to sort of reduce the chance of injury. Now, you don't need to be smashing out, in the gym 2, 3 times a week. You can do this from home if needs be, but you need to make sure that you are including this, including mobility training to offset all the time that we spend sitting down. We all do this. The older that you are, the more this is going to be a problem. That will help us, improve. If we are really mobile, if we're flexible, that will help us move in a more efficient, economical way and reduce the risk of injury. So it's super important to include this. Should be the main focus of your off season. So when we are, a long way away from race day, like 6, 7, 8 months out from race day, yeah, time in the gym should be where we are, putting a lot of our effort, lifting heavy, getting really strong, getting resilient athletes. When we get to race season, when we're at 6 months out from race day, we do need to drop the strength training back a little bit. Just a session a week, strength maintenance, because we need to ensure that we are not letting the strength training have having a negative effect on our swimming, cycling, and running, which is at the end of the day more important. We just need to keep the strength as a supplemental element. Longest sessions, how long is it that you need to go in your training? Well, uh, aiming to hit, 3.8 kilometers in the pool ahead of race day is a really good target. In the open water, even better, but that's not always possible if it's an early season race. Um, and ideally, if you're going to be sort of doing these race simulation swims, if you can do it in the sea, if you can be doing a sea race, that is ideal. But again, if you're in like a landlocked country or a landlocked state, it may not be possible for you to travel out to an ocean to get that practice swim in. I appreciate that. 5.5 hours on the bike, ideally longer, we want. Um, yeah, if you're the kind of person who thinks that it's going to take you about 8 hours to get around the bike, then you're going to need to make sure that you put in some even longer sessions than that. We're going to get on to sort of potentially editing a training plan later, but you do need to go, well, if it's going to take me 8 hours, I probably need to get close to like 6.5, 7 hours on my long ride. So this does vary. And, some people may be, hoping to get off the bike around about the 5 hour mark, and 5.5 might be a little bit too long. But for most people, that kind of 5.5, maybe 6 hour ride is probably the sweet spot. And I would avoid doing a marathon in training, honestly. The benefits don't outweigh the risks and the fatigue. I get the idea that, oh well, it would give me a lot of confidence to know I can run a marathon in training. Look, I don't care if you can run a marathon in training or if you can run a marathon at an event, okay? Because you're probably going to be walking good stretches of the Ironman marathon. Sorry to break it to you, but you probably are. And it's more about just covering 42.2 kilometers on foot rather than being able to hold a certain pace for a certain distance. Again, it's a war of attrition. It's a long day out. You need to reframe this. And yeah, okay, if you have signed up for a spring marathon, I'm not saying don't do it, but the amount of training it takes to get ready for a marathon to run it well, you're going to be running 3 or 4 times a week. You're going to have these really long, big long runs in early in the schedule to get ready for this marathon, which is going to mean less time spent on the bike. I mean, the best run fitness in the world, but if you push too hard on the bike, if you don't have the bike fitness, you're not going to be able to run. Now, all of this information, I mean, you're familiar with this from 70.3, but it gets much bigger with Ironman. You can't afford to let Ironman become a second job. Okay, Ironman is a lifestyle, but we want it to still feel fun. We want to minimize the amount of time that we spend on things that, well, just aren't Iron Man. In all of these decisions that you have to make, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to work out. You can't afford to just make things up as you go along. And there are a huge amount of unseen time sinks, that Iron Man training can take over your life. Time that you spend planning training, researching the latest training methods. Everyone's got an idea of the best way to train. Look on YouTube, look on Instagram, any social media, people will be sharing the latest training methods. This is the way to train. This is what the science tells us to do. And it's really difficult because you've got all this conflicting information. Like, which one do I believe? You can spend hours trawling YouTube for answers to your questions, or Reddit, or ask it in groups, whatever it could be. And you look for the answers to your questions. You get all these different answers. Sorry, talking non-stop for a while now. Um, looking for all these answers to your questions, and it's all conflicting advice, and it's just maddening. You can, of course, read textbooks on training, but that takes a lot of time to be able to sit down and to go through all of this to understand everything involved. I'm not saying don't do it, but not a lot of people have enough time to sit down and to go through a textbook in that way, especially people who have families, busy jobs. You can also spend hours poring over data, trying to analyze things, perhaps, ending up with sort of paralysis via analysis. And having all of this, you're no longer just looking at the hours you spend training. You could be looking at spending an extra 5 or 6 hours a week doing all of this. Most Ironman athletes will follow a training plan, some sort of training structure, which saves you time and it removes all the guesswork from your training. It means you're no longer sort of wasting all of that time going through all of those. You go, okay, here is what it is that I need to do. And the cost of a training plan, it's not the issue. So why is it that more don't follow a training plan. I think while it's a majority of athletes, it's kind of around the sort of like the 60% will follow a structured plan, training plan. What about the other 40%? Why is it that they're trying to wing it? Biggest one, ego. And this is the biggest enemy in Ironman. It's people who want to work out for themselves. They see asking for help as a weakness. People who, they go, oh, well, no, I wouldn't want to be seen to be weak. I'm accepting that that I'm not perfect, that I'm not good enough. I don't need any help. I'll figure this out on my own. They don't like being told what to do. I mean, none of us really like being told what to do. But people who will deliberately, if somebody tells them one thing, they will go out of their way to do the opposite thing because they want to prove that they know better. Um, they got, a bit of a rebellious streak. They don't like any kind of authority or sort of know-it-all. People who may have voted for certain political figures in the past, perhaps those who have this sort of anti-authority. I've got all the answers. I know better than the scientists. That kind of mindset. People, it is like that sense of sort of like of ego and wanting to feel that they've got all the answers. And these are the group they're most likely to fail to finish because they've got it in their head that they are the authority on Ironman, despite the fact they haven't completed one. And as a result of them not kind of reaching out and getting help, they are the group most likely to fail to finish. And this is most common in men. We're pretty bad for this, guys. Everybody has this to an extent. None of us are going to be sort of completely, oh yes, just tell me what to do and I'll do whatever you want. None of us are like that. We all have ideas on the best way to go about things. And again, we're 70.3 finishers. Everyone here is a 70.3 finisher. We know a bit of what it is that works about us, okay, for us. But when we're looking at preparing for a challenge like an Ironman, I don't want your ego to get in the way of being able to finish your event. This here is a photograph of one of my triathlon bookshelves. I have loads of other books, some don't fit on the bookshelves. Over the last 10 years, I've read these books cover to cover, broadly speaking, a couple of exceptions. Okay. I have learned all of this over 10 years that's helped me put together this webinar, my coaching, my training plans, all of that. I don't think that by reading a few books, you're probably going to be able to contend with, I mean, how long is it going to take you to get through all of that and to absorb it and to apply it to any kind of training plan? And this is why people outsource the problem. The most successful athletes are the ones who seek support. With my bespoke coaching business, I've worked with a lot of executives, CEOs in sort of top companies. And they're the ones who outsource these problems. They're the ones who hire consultants. They're the ones who hire staff because they know I can't run this business on my own. I can't make every single decision. Okay. I need to get some outside help. You know, I hired a business coach to help me with my business, to build my business. It's not a sign of weakness to reach out and to ask for help. It's what's necessary if you've got so much else going on in your life, so many big important decisions. And with a project like an Ironman, the stakes are high financially and all the time that you invest in it. And by, outsourcing this problem with a coach, with a training plan, with anything like that, it saves you time. It allows you to actually focus on what's important. That's spending time with your family, spending more time training, okay? Being attentive at work, social life, other areas of your life. So you're not sat there trawling through YouTube videos, missing social occasions, because you want to be the big man, because you want to be seen to have done it all on your own, to do it solo, because you've really got something to prove. And imagine if somebody was, getting you into the sport, a friend or a colleague, and they said, "Oh, I've signed up for my first Ironman." You'd probably have some tips for, "Oh, you want to do this, you want to do this. This is the way to do it." You'd expect them to come to you for advice because you'd be a little bit upset and offended if they didn't. You'd be like, "Well, why? Why are they trying to work it out on their own? I can help them." But yet people often fail to apply that to themselves. They go, "Oh, but I'm different. No, I'm a lone wolf. I figure it out on my own." On the flip side, the other issue people have that stops them from taking, looking for a structured approach to their training is a lack of confidence. Is when buying a training plan, when looking at their structure, it feels intimidating because they feel they're not worthy. Now, if you finish a 70.3, you're an athlete. Let's make no mistake, okay? You are worthy of following a training plan. You are absolutely an athlete who can look at a training plan and tackle that. And it does feel like a commitment, makes it all feel a bit real. Now, you may have already signed up for your Ironman. It could be that you haven't yet, so it could be you're just considering. But by buying a plan, suddenly it feels a lot more real. The entry is one thing, because you go, oh yes, I'll enter that race. It's in 11 months' time. I was inspired by last year's event, so I'm going to do that one. But it's in 11 months. It's no big deal. But as soon as they then get a training plan, they go, oh, yikes. Okay, this is happening. Like, and this is what my training is going to look like. This is what it's going to take. I think that's one of the reasons why some people sort of step back from that and they go, oh no, they're a bit nervous about it because they don't want to like engage with sort of the reality because they're a bit scared. Um, but having a plan, being able to look at the training between now and the event and go, oh, this is what's going to come along. This is what I need to do. This is what the session is going to look like. It will make you feel more confident because you look at the first week and you hopefully go, I can do that. And if I can do week one, I can do week two. If I can do week two, I can do week three, and then have a rest week. And it builds up from there. And although the idea of completing an Ironman looks really intimidating, when you look at a training plan, when you break it all down, yeah, that actually suddenly feels a lot more sort of achievable. That, you know what, yes, I can achieve this. I can do this after all. Even if someone signed up in a moment of madness or when they're feeling a bit overly optimistic, sorry, clearly got a little bit of sort of trapped air there. Yeah, a little bit of it gives them certainty that they can do it. That it is achievable. It's possible for them to do it. And by failing to engage with any kind of structured plan or coach, it is a form of procrastination. Oh, I'll sort that out later. Oh, I'll hold off on this until now. And that it's fine to an extent if you've just finished your season. Okay, if you're watching this after finishing your first 70.3, you want to jump straight up to the Iron, you want to jump up to an Ironman next year, then take some time. It's okay to procrastinate for a while, but you do need to engage. You do need to go, okay, well, I need to start laying the foundations now. A lot of the plans that I write, they're only about 5 or 6 hours a week to start with, because you're so far out from your race that we can't afford to be putting in like big training weeks this far out because that's hard to sustain long term. So it doesn't mean you're hitting the ground with loads of really hard training, but you are laying the foundations. You're putting in the groundwork required to excel. Once you're 6 months out from the race, and you can really put your foot down. And this is, whilst the ego is more common in men, this lack of confidence, lack of sense of self-belief is more common in women that I've talked to and that I've worked with. So, there's benefits for both people. Again, lots of women who've got an ego like that, and lots of men who lack this level of confidence. It's not mutually exclusive, but for both groups, there's a definite benefit to actually be able to engage with a structure and go, okay, well, this is what it's actually going to take to be able to finish this event. A lot of people they're worried about being trapped or locked into a plan. But a plan, it's more a framework, it's more of a roadmap than it is something we need to complete every single session. You're not going to be a failure if you go off plan or you miss sessions. I mean, some of the plans that I have, they're 50 weeks long. It would be completely unreasonable for me to write a plan and go, well, oh, they'll only finish if they complete every single one of these sessions. All of my plans that I write, they're built in with a huge amount of leeway in them, because people are going to get ill. They are going to get injured. They are going to miss sessions. They're going to have weddings to attend. They're going to have important social occasions. There's going to be all sorts of reasons why they cannot, complete every single session. And that's okay. This training plan, it's not something you absolutely need to. It's a base. It's a framework. Okay. For some, it's just a starting point. And again, you can miss several sessions. Plans can and should be edited to fit your ability and the availability. So if you work on weekends, of course you can shuffle those long sessions onto other days in the week. If you have a really strong background in running, then I'd encourage you to do one less run a week and to do maybe another swim or another bike. Probably another bike for Ironman to really help you get there. Okay. This is, it's a starting point, a training plan. And clubs and social sessions, that's a bit of a tongue twister. Can't speak. Club and social sessions can be incorporated. So if you enjoy going out on group rides, if you do sort of group swim sessions, you can of course go, well, you know what, this session in the plan, this swim session, I'm just going to swap that with my club session. Or, well, yes, the long weekend ride, I'll just do that with my friends instead of following exactly what's on the plan. You know, it can be, you can change this, you can move this around. It's not that you're locked into it, but it will help give you important sessions. It will help you make sure that you're increasing sessions at roughly the right level. I mean, when it comes to like group sessions, group rides, I think like a one-on-one off approach is fine. So if you do one week where you do it with a club and then one week where you're going out solo, doing this specific workout from the training plan, that should be absolutely fine. It's much better to have this overarching plan, this overarching idea, than it is to try and do everything completely solo. Some people also want to avoid certain sessions, so sessions that could be too hard or could be too easy. Some people have a bit of an aversion to intervals. They don't like pushing themselves too hard. But the intervals, if we are going to be completely Ironman within the cutoff, we are going to need to do some intensity work, I'm afraid. Um, if we are going to be doing lots of long, slow training. Some people don't like that. They don't want to be told to slow down. They don't want to train in zone two. Well, I'm sorry, but this is Iron Man. Suck it up, buttercup. You are going to be racing at a low intensity, and you need to embrace this. You need to incorporate this. No, it won't give you the same buzz, but this is how all of the best athletes train. Okay? When I did my first Ironman, I could run a 5K in under 18 minutes. But it took me 5.5 hours to run and walk my way around my marathon. I had the speed, I did all these faster sessions, but I didn't have the aerobic base to be able to excel in the Ironman marathon. So I didn't do enough long, easy sessions. Plus the bike really kicked my head in. But again, not having the fitness to be able to do that either. And a plan's not holding a gun to your head. It's not like if you're, if you, decided to hire me as a coach and held you to account a bit more, I can understand, some people are feeling a bit kind of, well, I don't want that accountability. Some people really need that accountability and they love that accountability. For some people, they go, no, I don't want somebody watching what it is that I do. I don't want somebody, holding me to account. But a training plan, completely different kettle of fish. Um, and a training plan is trying to help, it's trying to promote best practice. Yes, there are going to be compromises. There's going to be shortened workouts. There are going to be workouts that get stacked onto different days. You're not going to be able to get to the open water venue every week. The pool might be closed for maintenance. It doesn't make a massive difference. But as long as you're following, like increasing your sessions broadly in line with the plan, following some of the key interval sessions out there, the strength sessions that are included with them, these are the real linchpins of the plan, and everything else that happens around them, it's not the end of the world. The other is some people think they're built different. You're not. It's you're going to have to adopt this sort of best practice training approach for Ironman. Over the shorter distances, you can get away with murder over the sprint and the Olympic distance. You can train in completely the wrong way and still end up only being, a few, sort of 5, 10 minutes slower than if you trained absolutely like optimally. But over an Ironman, like you are going to get found out so fast and you will have a panic because I'll be fine, I'll get by, I'll do it. You're going to miss the bike cutoff if you don't use the structured approach. Just because you think that you're built differently to others. Some people are also hesitant at getting a training plan because, an unpredictable schedule. They don't work 9 to 5. They don't have weekends off. They may do sort of shift work. I mean, when I worked in the film industry, I mean, for people who are self-employed and when they're working, then they are away from home, doing really long hours, something like that. That's when, that's one of the situations where, yeah, like a training plan probably isn't going to work for you if you find that there are just, weeks often that you can't train and then you have weeks off where you try and cram everything in. Yeah, that's when sort of a training plan really does sort of reach its sort of its limit of usability. But for people who are just like doing odd shifts in a week, if you work in healthcare, if you work in retail, anything that involves like regular weekend work, triathlon coach involves a lot of regular weekend work. Your sessions, they can be moved around in the calendar. You can just reorganize them. Yeah, well, I'm off Tuesday, Thursday, so I put my longer sessions in then. Just have my shorter sessions on the weekend. It's not rocket science, but you've still got the same workouts you're doing in a week. You're just doing them in a different order. And yes, you can absolutely miss workouts when you are sort of away. If you've got a work conference, you wait for 3 days, then you can stack the workouts that you missed onto other days, or you could just go, oh, you know what, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It's not a big deal. Um, Creativity is permitted, if not encouraged, with a training plan. And just, no matter what you do, just try not to create a backlog of more than 1 or 2 sessions. If you miss more than 2 sessions, then just go, oh, you know what, that session's not going to happen. But if you just miss one or maybe two, you can stack them onto other days or turn that rest day into a training day because you missed those sessions. Totally legit, and I encourage you to do that. But even with this, some people they don't feel confident adjusting the plan. How do you adjust the session? How do you adjust them after that missed session? Which order should you do them in? How do you manage injury, time lost for illness? How do you perform sort of strength exercises or swimming drills? How do you sort of shorten a plan if you buy, a 28-week plan, but you've only got 26 weeks until you race? How do you go about that? Or if they don't know how to use Training Peaks, they don't understand how the software works. Well, I've put together a series of Step Up to Ironman training plans, and these are designed for people like you, completed a 70.3. You want to move up to an Ironman. I believe they're the best value option on the market because they come with 2 free resources. Not only do you get your free, not only do you get your training plan, you get a free triathlon training guide. So this free triathlon training guide, it covers what to do if you're ill, how to manage injury. It covers the basics of swim technique. There's videos of swim drills in there. It covers a massive, massive amount of information. Strength training, all of this, at a relatively low, relatively high level. It's not like I'm going into the weeds and really going into detail of everything just with this free training guide. There are more premium resources that go into that level of detail, but it helps you hold your hand. It helps you reorganize things. It helps you understand, if you are a really strong swimmer, how to adjust the plan to reflect that. Things like that. It helps ensure that you stay on track with your training, even when you miss a week or more training. Training Peaks, a triathletes course, it helps take you through Training Peaks. Now, Training Peaks, fantastic bit of software, best on the market. But the downside is it's really quite complex as a result. So I put together a short course, helps you understand how you create an account, how it is that you can sort of sync all your devices up, understand the performance metrics, understand how to get sessions sent to your watch, okay? It really helps you understand what it is that you need to know about the Training Peaks software so that you understand how to use this plan. This what I've done that no other coaches has, as far as I can tell. I've written the plans in 1 week intervals. So my shortest Ironman plan is 12 weeks. I've also got a 13-week plan, 14-week plan, 15-week plan, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way up to 50 weeks, which is longer than the vast majority of plans go. So no matter how far you are out from your Ironman, you can pick up one of these plans. Training starts tomorrow. Well, Monday. You don't need to worry. You don't need to because most plans are designed to be started on Monday, but you don't need to go, oh, well, there's no plans that are designed for athletes who are 37 weeks out from their race. Mine are. Most plans, they're between 6 and 14 hours a week. So, 14 hours being the longest week of the plan and 6 hours being the shortest. So they don't take over your life. They still got the volume you'd expect from an Ironman plan, but they are not bumping up against kind of 18, 20-hour weeks. Okay, you'll still be able to achieve, achieve balance with your training, with work, and with family. Designed there, for 70.3 finishers. So we're not starting out with really basic stuff. Okay, I already assume that you can run a half marathon, that you can ride for about 3 hours. It includes that. Of course, that's not said we're going to start straight with a 90-minute run. Some of the shorter plans, that's about sort of like the 50-week ones, the 40-something week ones, start off shorter than that, and we build ourselves up so that we don't find ourselves. Because if we start with a 90-minute run, sorry, my dog just kicked my laptop. Um, you are being a nuisance, aren't you? Yes, you are. Um, these really long distance plans, we can't afford to start with a 90-minute run and get longer each week because we'll find ourselves at the point where we'll be doing sort of 4 or 5 hour runs, and that is way too much volume, stupidly high injury risk, that comes with that. I can include strength training with all these plans, so there are videos that show you exactly how to do each exercise, with coaching points to help you understand how to perform them, all delivered via the Training Peaks platform. All the sessions sent to your watch, and in the triathlon training guide, there's also understanding, how to use a gym etiquette, different bits of equipment, understanding all of these to help people who've never used a gym before sort of understand that. So yeah, I've put these together. It's taken me several months to put these together. They start from £26. Okay. You get 15% off for making it all the way through this webinar, making it to the end. They're going to give you 50% off with the code STEPUP. Okay, so if you stick that in at the checkout, you can save 15% off all of my plans, starting at £26. Okay, money isn't the problem. It's not the cost of a training plan that puts people off. It's thinking they know better, thinking they're not good enough, not understanding how to go about things. But I'd like to think that I've put a really good framework together that's going to help you successfully move from the 70.3 up to an Ironman. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. I'm going to stick my email as well as information about my bespoke coaching options as well. If you are looking, for something that has a bit more sort of coach contact, you want a bit more help, a bit more customization, you want some help with all this, I'm happy to help. All that information is down there, as well as links to the plans. Thank you for joining me for this webinar, and I hope I will see you all very soon.